Everybody was talking today about who won and who lost and this happened and that happened. Well, basically everybody got it wrong, but that's why you tune into my show, and that's why my show is called I'm Right. Everyone said Michael Bloomberg had a bad night, and I'm going to play you all the barbs they threw at Bloomberg, and they were a lot. People, who won and lost the debate is not about the debate itself. It's about what you need from the debate. It's not about the debate. Mike Bloomberg owns the airways right now. Mike Bloomberg is rocketing up the polls right now. Mike Bloomberg didn't need to have a good debate. Mike Bloomberg needed to show up, don't die on the stage, and become the focus of everybody else, because that makes him look like the front runner. And if you tuned into that debate, you thought, oh, they're all scared of Mike Bloomberg. Bernie Sanders is the one in the lead. They're all attacking Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg won that debate. Bernie Sanders also had a very good night. Why? Because all the morons on the stage were worried about Mike Bloomberg and his billions, and they did forget about the fact that if you look at the map right now and you look at the polling numbers, there's a chance Bernie's going to prove me wrong and put this thing out of reach really, really quickly. And with the exception of a great shot Bloomberg landed on Bernie, he let him just roll right. Everyone else just let him roll right along. So people talked about Elizabeth Warren having a good night. Well, Elizabeth Warren came off terribly. Just so, everyone knows how anti-feminist I am. So I wanted to make some phone calls today. I talked to some relatively non-political people who watched. I talked to men. I talked to women. Every single person to a man said Elizabeth Warren came off horribly. Yes, she dominated the talking time. I know that's a real big surprise. But she came off nasty. She constantly was doing this hands up, hand waving thing that was really distracting. She was interrupting everybody, arguing with everybody. And yes, she landed a nice shot on Bloomberg, but Elizabeth Warren did not help herself. And again, it's not what happened during the debate, it's what they needed from the debate. Elizabeth Warren has been cratering. Her supporters are leaving in droves, and she needed to come out looking awesome. She came out looking like what she is. A screeching harpy that nobody wants to be around for more than 25 seconds. Not a single person in the world saw that debate last night and thought, I'd really like to have a beer with Elizabeth Warren. Nobody did. Nobody did. I can imagine how many divorced dudes out there had PTSD just listening to that screaming. Klobuchar had some good moments, had some bad moments, but again, she's forgettable, has always been forgettable, hasn't won a single state, hasn't really come that close to doing so. Klobuchar needed a home run, and instead she was shaking like a dog poop in a peach pit the entire night. She looked weak. She looked nervous. She got defensive about forgetting the name of the Mexican president. She was absolutely terrible. And Joe Biden. People say Joe Biden had a good night. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden used to be up 20, 30 points. Joe Biden should be the winner. I forgot he was on stage for the first 30 minutes. Joe Biden sucked. Joe Biden was awful. Buttigieg did okay. I will tell you he did okay. He's the one that makes me nervous because he's just as radical as the rest of them. But you could see on that stage what he did. He shifted into general election mode for the campaign, and he did that to show the primary voters, I'm the one you want facing Trump. He drew stark contrasts all night long. He made that one great line about Bernie, wants to burn down the system, and Bloomberg wants to buy the system. And that was not nearly the only time he went after the two frontrunners. To his credit, he was the only one up there taking shots at Bernie. But Mike Bloomberg won that debate. Bernie also had a good night. The rest of them, not so much. Now, speaking of Mike Bloomberg, we have the intros for you here. Here's Mike.
The Democratic presidential debate. Live from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Now that the stage is narrowed to 6 candidates, and there's a new person on the stage tonight, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, a former Republican who spent millions of his own dollars to run in this race. What hasn't changed, a majority of Democratic voters still say their top priority is beating President Trump.
Sorry, we must have loaded the wrong video for you there. Elizabeth Warren, remember I said she got a great shot in on Bloomberg? Well, look, the trouble with Bloomberg is Bloomberg. He's not charismatic. He's about as charismatic as a sea urchin in your bed. He comes off nasty. He comes across like what he is, an extremely wealthy New York elitist who really looks down on everybody. And apparently he has a long history of being accused of various forms of sexual harassment in the workplace. I don't know the details of them. Most people don't, because so many of the, various people out there have signed non-disclosure agreements. Elizabeth Warren made it look like Mike Bloomberg has some serious skeletons in his closet. And these were clean shots. This landed.
He has gotten some number of women, dozens, who knows, to sign non-disclosure agreements, both for sexual harassment and for gender discrimination in the workplace. So, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to release all of those women from those non-disclosure agreements so we can hear their side of the story?
Like I said, Elizabeth Warren was effective with her attacks, but didn't necessarily make herself look great when she did it. She wasn't done yet. She kept going.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg. Democrats are not going to win if we have a nominee who has a history of hiding his tax returns, of harassing women, and of supporting racist policies like redlining and stop and frisk. Look, I'll support whoever the Democratic nominee is, but understand this: Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another.
Bloomberg overall had very, very poor responses, especially early on, because look, I'm just showing you the highlights. Everybody was taking shots at Mike Bloomberg, and frankly, he kind of looked nervous and unprepared. I don't know how, when you spend $900 million on your campaign or whatever he's spent so far, you can't afford to hire somebody who will properly prepare you for debate attacks that you're clearly going to get. Any moron I know knew Mike Bloomberg was going to get attacked on those things, although he looked unprepared, he looked nervous, he looked terrible. And for the most part, he just laid down and took it. Bernie, though, probably should have laid off, because, boy, Bloomberg landed a clean shot on him.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you have your home?
New York City, thank you very much, and I pay all my taxes.
That's the problem for Bernie. I mean, Bernie does come across as authentic, and he authentically believes, so many of these things, at least appearance-wise. But he is telling everybody it's about the working people, and it is about the poor. We have to give back, and he has 3 houses. And he's telling everybody we have this existential threat, and fossil fuels are going to kill the earth, and we have to do something now. And he flies on private planes. It's a problem. It's going to be a problem. And if Bernie Sanders wins this nomination, and there's a very good chance that he will, Donald Trump, do you think maybe Donald Trump is going to savage him about that? He is. Now, Bloomberg, when I said he came off nervous and sounded terrible, this is Exhibit A. When he was asked about his stop and frisk policies, this was not a good response.
I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness, but the bottom line is that we stopped too many people, we stopped too many people, and we've got to make sure that we do something about criminal justice in this country. There is no great answer to a lot of these problems, and if we took off everybody that was wrong off this panel, everybody that was wrong on criminal justice at some time in their careers, there'd be nobody else up here.
Okay, well, that's not going to be good enough. You see, Mike Bloomberg, he has a problem. His problem with this primary is black voters make up a substantial portion, or at least a significant enough portion of the Democrat voting base. They just do. We have South Carolina coming up. The reason Joe Biden was always thought to win South Carolina, I'm telling you he's not going to, but the reason he was always thought to win it was because he has such high support with the black community. And those problems from Mike, or those questions, those answers about Mike Bloomberg, they're going to be an issue for him. Black people are not big fans of his comments on stop and frisk, where you have to throw young black men up against the wall and search them. I had a call into my radio show the other night. Black dude was not happy about that, and he was a diehard Democrat. He has to find a better answer than the one you just saw up there, or he's in trouble. He is in trouble. But again, keep in mind, always take the broad view of things. He had a rough debate. He took a lot of shots. How many people are going to remember that in a week? 3 or 4 days. You see, Mike Bloomberg may have had a rough debate and they took a bunch of shots at him. Mike Bloomberg's also the one who's going to be on the airwaves everywhere. Mike Bloomberg's the one who's buying radio ads in every city in the country. Mike Bloomberg is the one who's paying for a lot of newspaper ads. Do you think a newspaper columnist where Mike Bloomberg is paying for ads, do you think that columnist is going to be more or less willing to take shots at Mike Bloomberg? As the old saying goes, money talks and socialism walks. Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.